All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to start the program now. Again, thank you everyone for being here in person, and thank you everyone who's tuning in via the live stream right now. My name is Nick Carr. I have the pleasure of serving as the chief strategist for the Stand With Crypto movement. We are so thrilled to be hosting this event alongside Coinbase and the Atlanta Blockchain Center. And this is going to be an incredible evening. We are going to start with a few opening remarks and then move into our star panel for the main part of the programming. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Director of State and Local Policy for Coinbase, David London, to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. I will be brief, but I'm here just to introduce someone. As you all know, when you have a leader that really understands Bitcoin, understands cryptocurrency, understands technology, it means a lot, because when you get that type of leadership, you can move forward with some great policies. So it's my pleasure to introduce one of our keynote speakers, City Council President, that is, Doug Shipman. Doug?
Well, good evening. It is a real pleasure to be back at the Village, to see lots of friends and new faces. I am Doug Shipman. I'm the Atlanta City Council President. And on behalf of the city, I want to formally welcome everyone here and welcome this incredible conversation, and especially welcome the former mayor of the city of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, who you'll get to hear from in a moment. I just want to set just a touch of context for a moment. Atlanta, in many ways, only exists because it is a crossroads. Two railways came together in the mid-19th century to form the city. There's no major ocean here. There's no major river. There's not gold, there's not oil. We existed because we were a crossroads for commerce. And that theme has continued, and sometimes we've done that really well in Atlanta. The airport is an incredible example. The world's busiest airport. At key moments, policy was made to build that airport, to expand that airport, to support it so that it would be a global center of commerce. And sometimes we've gotten it wrong. In the 1960s, Atlanta was an incredible banking center. It was the home of many, many banks. But we fell behind in policy, specifically to North Carolina. North Carolina started changing their policy, and in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when all the roll-up of that industry happened, instead of headquarters being here, they were in Charlotte because of policy. And so policy matters. And as we come to this crossroads of technology where we see crypto and blockchain and Web3 and all of these great platforms being built, it's incumbent upon us as policymakers to get it right, because we've seen what happens when we get it right in Atlanta, and we see what happens when we miss it. And so I'm very grateful to be able to be here tonight to continue to learn, and I just extend my hand from the city's perspective. If there are things we can do to support this industry to make sure we get it right, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, to reach out to the mayor, to reach out to the folks at Invest Atlanta. All of us are ready and willing to help, and we really appreciate all of you believing that Atlanta can once again be that crossroads of commerce. Thanks so much.
And now we are going to hear from the Senior Vice President of CleanSpark, Scott Garrison, and why they have chosen Georgia to invest so much in. Scott?
Thank you, sir, and thanks for having us here at CleanSpark. CleanSpark basically moved to Georgia in 2019. Just to go back, CleanSpark was an energy company. We built software for military bases for the grid. Our CEO came to Atlanta and realized about crypto, and we bought our first facility in College Park. Then went to Norcross. We do an immersion site there. I moved out to Georgia from out west. I was in Las Vegas for 20 years, where our corporate is. We now have under 100 employees in Georgia. I moved out full time, and I'll never move back. We moved because of power, clean power with Vogel. It was incredible to see what Vogel is doing. We're here because we love the people. We have incredible sites. We now have 5 sites. We chose MEAG power in rural Georgia. And MEAG has been great because of non-emitting power. They're over 70%. And we have enjoyed that. We're in the process of building 150 megawatts in Sandersville, Georgia. When we finish that, we'll have 230 megawatts in rural Georgia and Sandersville. I learned from Walter West, who is the CEO of Electric Cities. Walter said, Scott, you're missing it. He goes, when you build this out, your tax rate on your power bill will be over $500,000 a month to rural Georgia. He goes, we will pay the city $250,000 a month in rural Georgia. So we're very excited about being here. Please come up, ask questions. I have two colleagues of mine, Amanda, we just brought on as an event, and Duncan Poe out from Las Vegas. So please come up to us if you're asking about mines, what we do, how we do it. The one last I want to leave for everybody in the room that understands mining. We self-mine. All the miners that we have, over pushing 100,000 in Georgia, I can turn those miners off at any second to put power back on the grid. So when people are saying they're hogging power, they're doing this, and then they talk about building batteries, I am the battery, and I pay for it, and I build it. So we can help Georgia at any time by shutting our sites off. We did that last year during the polar freeze. Coming up, we shut our sites down 4 days and then 2 half days. So people need it. When it comes on, we can shut down. I can shut all our sites down in 5 minutes. Say, they wouldn't let me shut anything down. We have people that do that. But thank you. Please come up with questions. We're here to stay. We're in it for the long game. We're already planning why Duncan is here. We're planning 24 and 25 right now. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
And now I have the distinct pleasure to introduce the moderator for tonight's event, the Chief Policy Officer of Coinbase, Faryar Shahzad.
Hey, thanks, Nick, and thanks all of you for being here. So one of the questions you might be asking yourself is, why are we here in Atlanta? And the reason we're here is because of all of you. At Coinbase, we're proud to be the largest crypto company in the United States, one of the largest around the world. And one of the things that Brian Armstrong, our founder and CEO, very much has kind of put as a central part of our mission is to help get the regulatory and policy environment around crypto right, so that all the builders and innovators, like all of you in the room, have the room you need to kind of build the cool applications and the game-changing, societally useful innovations on the blockchain with some clarity, certainty, and an ability to grow and build, create jobs, and do it here in the United States. And so we're grateful that you're all here, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to be a part of you. But as we pursued our policy mission, we realized that part of what we needed to do was not only tell the story of crypto, but to tell the story of the people behind crypto. And so we started an organization called standwithcrypto.org. And Nick, right now, who you heard just a moment ago, is running that for us. And we decided to create an independent organization that's a grassroots mobilizing effort to bring the community together and give all of you a voice so that you're part of the policy debate. And so we've just started the process, and we went out and we asked folks, do you want to be an advocate? And we had about 100,000 people that have already raised their hands and said they want to be an advocate. And so we're trying to catch up to where the demand is. We're building a very cool website. We're building a really superstar team, Nick and some others who are running it. And we're building programs like this where we can come out and meet with all of you, and then to put the icing on the top of the cake, to bring some of the top policymakers from your community here to hear from you. And so we're extraordinarily lucky to have the lineup that we have with us today. And so the conversation we're going to have shortly, we're going to have a couple of founders who are going to be a part of the discussion, and we're going to have some really excellent officials, all of whom are smart, thoughtful. They're not necessarily experts in crypto, but they're experts in understanding that they're here to learn, they're here to hear from all of you, and this panel is a really great opportunity to do that. So what I'm going to do now is introduce everybody in the order of where they're sitting, and then we're going to have a conversation, and we'll give all of you a chance to ask questions as well. So with that, let me start with our first panelist, who is former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's going to come join us here. And then we've got Marlon Williams, the founder of the Atlanta Blockchain Center. Chuck Efstration, the Georgia House Majority Leader. Robbie Greenfield, the founder and CEO of Emoja Labs. And State Representative Sue Hong, the floor leader for Brian Kemp in the State House. All right, fantastic. So, Mayor, maybe I'll start with you. You and I have just started having conversations a few weeks ago about crypto. And one of the things that you said to me is how, as a mayor, you were very focused on making sure the builders, innovators had room to grow and build in Atlanta. Can you kind of talk about tech and innovation and crypto and your vision of kind of where Atlanta can be as a tech center?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to see all of you all. And what we talked about was how Atlanta has always been this place where we do things differently. And President Shipman touched on that. We've always taken the opportunity to be different, to be innovative. Under our administration, we were able to open up a workforce center that really is a game changer in our city. And we did it by working with CEOs, corporations across the city. So, for example, Delta Airlines said we're going to need X number, 10,000 pallets in the next several years. And then someone else said, and we're going to need coders. And then someone else said, and we're going to need plumbers. And you go down the list. We were able to work with our technical college to set up a training program to be able to train people to fill this space. So in that same way that we're able to do that, I think there's an incredible opportunity for us to fill the space and fill the needs of where we are with crypto. And what I share with you is I don't know what I don't know, but I do know that there's a great opportunity. And I also believe that there is an opportunity for Atlanta to not just be on the ground floor, but to be able to take it all the way to the top as we've been able to do with so many other things in this city.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So, Marlon, you're one of the reasons why we're here. You know, founder, innovator, developer. Can you tell everyone kind of your story and share with everybody how you came into crypto?
Do you guys want me to take over the whole session tonight? Or?
In under a few minutes.
Many of you know me. I have made it a mission effectively to help put Atlanta on the map for blockchain innovation. I have a background as a software developer, still code to this day for fun, and started my first medical software company in 2003 that I sold in 2008. Got wind of Bitcoin just a few months after it came out because of my role at the time running an IT department in Miami, Florida. And I've been following blockchain ever since. So it's safe to say that I've been in blockchain almost since the inception of it. Got more active in 2013, 14, and then even more active in 15 and 16 as blockchain became more programmable, and started building and experimenting with different solutions, including being a co-founder of a blockchain and just immersing myself in various blockchain-based initiatives. So I'm a builder of solutions on blockchain with a couple decades of experience. What I love about Atlanta is that it has all of the elements that a city needs to thrive and become an innovation hub. When I was going to school back in the day, we looked up to companies like Microsoft and Oracle. We learned a lot about Silicon Valley. That was the epitome of success in any tech ecosystem. I was part of the early startup ecosystem in Miami. We wanted to thrive, so I've seen what other cities do to help grow and become attractive to investors, to students so that they can stay, to builders and others. And I'm seeing a similar thing here in Atlanta. And the blockchain ecosystem here has so much potential to make things fairer for everyone. And that's what excites me the most and why I'm here and I'm building and founded the Blockchain Center to help educate the ecosystem around blockchain, to partner with organizations like 404 DAO, We Studio, and others who are all part of the ecosystem. It isn't just us, by the way. And now getting more and more in front of legislators and working with them and having dialogues around how do we make Atlanta great for blockchain. So thanks for having us.
Oh, it's great to have you. And it was also great to have you in D.C. in our fly-in day when we went and saw members of Congress, and you and Robbie both were instrumental in that, so thank you for doing that. So leader, Efstration, you're obviously, your district is nearby, but your responsibilities as a statewide official, as the leader of the House, obviously has you have a broader aperture of how you think about jobs, innovation, and kind of where it fits into the Georgia economy. Can you talk about kind of how you think about tech, innovation, and how much you're thinking about crypto as a leader?
Well, absolutely. First of all, I want to thank you so much for having me this evening. It's great to be here with all of you. We have such a great story to tell to innovators and employers throughout the country. Georgia really has an incredible regulatory tax structure that enables innovators to build businesses, to employ individuals, and to reach their full potential. Hear all the time that cost of living, the ability to bring about new industries with support from your great higher education institutions that you have in the metro Atlanta area and throughout the state. Just all the different resources that we have in the state of Georgia truly makes it the best state in the country to live, work, raise a family. And that is being noticed nationally and internationally. I think that as we look at innovation, certainly we are seeing at the state capitol increased opportunities to look at important and proper regulatory structures for technology type issues that previously were handled nationally. We've seen that with different legislation over the past few years. It's become such an important issue that in the State House of Representatives, we've actually created a committee on technology and innovation infrastructure for our state so that specific scrutiny can be given to these bills and that we can bring in policy matter experts to give feedback. And I think that the discussion around cryptocurrency in the future is very exciting, and the fact that we're going to have folks who can give input that's truly helpful to what's the best policy in this area is something that all Georgians, and I think throughout the country, we can be very proud of.
That's fantastic. Robbie, you also are a founder, and I'm going to ask you later about your experience in coming to DC, but can you talk about your own kind of crypto story and Emoja Labs? And
Yeah, absolutely. So for background, Robbie Greenfield, CEO, co-founder of Emoja Labs, an Atlanta native. So first part of my life in Stone Mountain, latter part of my life in Buckhead. And I got into the blockchain space in 2011, so I did engineering at the University of Michigan. Was very lucky to have one of my friends building a Bitcoin exchange at the time, because realistically there was really only gambling or exchanges at that time. Ethereum did not exist yet. And because it was interesting, because 2011, 2012, that was a time where you saw a huge activism surge around the nation, right? So you started to see campaigns like BBUM, Being Black at University of Michigan, or I Am Too Harvard, which were precursors to Black Lives Matter movement, which has recently resurged again. And so in that context, as an engineer, just wanted to see how I could contribute toward my own community, but also leverage technologies that I was intimately involved in or passionate about. I had a few opportunities to do that at Goldman Sachs and also at Cisco Systems, but really kind of realized that potential at Consensus, where I was the former head of social impact. And our whole mandate was leveraging blockchain technology in the context of social impact. So working with UN agencies, working with multinational NGOs, and effectively facilitating, humanitarian aid programs using stablecoins that were 100% transparent. So you literally could not commit fraud within them, or facilitating self-sovereign identity for those in refugee camps. And that parlayed into my work at Emoja Labs, where we enable payment systems based in the U.S., but for typically emerging market countries in the context of aid, credit, and also currency hedging as well.
I have to ask you the follow-up question, because the self-sovereign identity is actually a very cool use case of crypto. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that for folks who may not be familiar with how important that is, particularly for displaced populations, refugees who often can't even carry ID with them because of the dangers that poses if they're identified as being a part of a particular ethnic group or what have you.
Absolutely. So the issue of identity, having identity documentation, is one that is both pertinent domestically and also internationally. There are many workers in Georgia who can't access certain public services because they lack identity documentation. That is same abroad. And the biggest issue is that not only can you not access things like, if you want to get a loan, can't get a loan, can't get a mortgage, right? Oftentimes can't get a certain type of job, But even when you are most downtrodden, you can't even access aid services. You can't get a housing voucher, right? You can't get EBT. And those things are kind of essential when you're trying to come up, right? And you got to have something to build off of. And so effectively finding ways to give somebody a persistent digital ID that they can carry across with them across different, social sector programs at the least, until they get situated and, hopefully graduate towards something that's, more official, either a state ID or otherwise.
So as society does more and more online, finding digital solutions that don't just use the old model of having a big centralized entity own and control all our information, monetize it, susceptible to hacking and loss, that's what the blockchain ultimately helps do.
Yes, very, very much so, because I don't know if you all know this, but when you participate in a social program, either it's one from the public sector, so it's state sponsored, or one that is social sector sponsored, so it's an NGO. That information does go somewhere, and oftentimes we only need to validate information. We only need to validate that you are from a specific area and you're of a certain age. We don't actually need to know the specific place and number of your age. And as you all know, having more data privacy in the context of accessing services is very important, because otherwise that data could be leaked or mismanaged, not necessarily on purpose, but oftentimes that does occur, and lead you to be vulnerable toward marketing that you might not necessarily want.
So Representative Hong, among your responsibilities is you're the floor leader for the governor. So I'm going to ask you a question similar to the one I asked the leader of Strachan in terms of how you think about technology, innovation, and particularly having a district here in Atlanta. I'd be curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And more importantly, thank you guys all for being here. It's good to see in person this community that a lot of people don't know exists. I talked to Marlon just probably 5 minutes when I got here, and I learned more about this community than, I would find online. And so I think it's important for us to continue to engage and learn and actually talk to each other in person, so that we can learn more about this community and we can do what we need to do to help you all. Again, I don't know too much about this community, but the only thing that I do know is, cryptocurrency essentially started off to get away from the government, correct? And so you don't want government coming in and doing a bunch of regulations. And so I think more importantly for us to learn where you guys are and how you guys can thrive without much regulation, but some regulation so that we can make sure that there isn't fraud, I think is important. And so I'm here to learn more about how we can do that and how we can work with each other. There is a bill I passed this past session, HB 128, that also helps our business community. It is to help with state procurement. So if you want any state contracts, if you are a minority-owned or women-owned or veteran-owned businesses, you can get on a separate list. And if you do get that procurement, then the contractor will be able to get tax exemption. So it is good. It's been really good for us to have more entrepreneurs and more people that are starting their own business as well. And so thank you for having me here. Please contact us, continue to talk to us, and continue to educate us.
What you said is actually really important, because regulation is not always the answer. But one of the things we found with some of what's happening in crypto, particularly at the federal level, is that regulation, actually clear rules, can actually be a check on the regulator. Because right now you have a couple of regulators at the federal level in DC who are unfortunately sort of out to get the crypto community, drive it offshore. And part of the reason we want regulation is to essentially provide bright lines on what the regulator can do and can't do. And I think somebody like you is very sensitive to kind of that dual role that regulation can play. But Mayor, one of the things I was going to ask you is, one of the roles that you had after you left the mayor's office was to become the head of public engagement. And one of the things that we talked to the community about is when you're an advocate, how much of a superpower you have as a member of the community when you show up to an event like this, talk to policymakers. Can you talk about how important it is to make a call to your congressperson or your representative and just be heard?
Yeah, for as much as elected officials get in public and we pretend to know everything, we really don't know a lot about a lot of things. And it is always helpful as an elected official when the experts come to us and inform us and say, this is where you can step in and this is how you can help us. We were talking before we came in. I remember a long time ago, back in 1994, when I bought a new computer and there was this thing telling me how I could get on this thing called the internet. And I was like, I don't trust that. I'm not going to do that. I don't know what that is. And look where we are. Well, I think for many of us, and I would say even myself included, that's where we are when it comes to crypto. We are afraid of what we don't understand. My experience with crypto was when we had the largest ransomware attack in the history of the city, and they wanted Bitcoin. So needless to say, it wasn't a great experience for me. Well, really for all of us, if you live in the city of Atlanta. And by the way, we didn't pay, but that's another panel for another day. So I just share that whether it's at the local level, state level, or federal level, education is always key. And then once we are informed, then we can go out and craft policies that work for all of us. And I always say my best sources come from my kitchen. There's not a lot of things that my oldest son is interested in, but when I told him where I was coming today, he's like, oh, yeah, that's good. You should go to that. And so I think the more information we have, the more empowered we can all be. And finally, for me, our administration was focused on equity in our city. And I want to make sure that, like with so many things, that all of our communities are included. So wherever the opportunities are, if it's, to be a founder, if it is to work in the industry, if it's to be informed, I think if there's any place where this can be done well, is Atlanta. Because as you all know, we really do influence everything.
So Mayor, for somebody to call you, whether you're at a mayor or at the White House, and talk to you about an issue, do they have to be an expert in legislation? Do they have to be like a policy PhD? Or can they just call you and tell you their story?
You may or may not be surprised at the power of a good email, and especially a good email chain. I'm sure President Shipman can attest to this. When you send the email to him and then you CC everybody on your city council, it tends to get a lot of attention. And then you put the mayor in there, then it really gets a lot of attention. So no, you don't have to be an expert. And in all seriousness, some of our best policy ideas really were grassroots ideas that people came to us. And an example for me was cash bail bond. It was one of the first pieces of legislation that I put through as mayor to remove cash bail bonds in the city of Atlanta. And it was something that was really important to our underserved communities. And once advocates came to me and explained it to me, I said, oh, I know what that's about. Yeah, I have family members who've gone to jail and couldn't afford to post bail and blah, blah, blah. And then we changed the policy in the city, and then lo and behold, the policy has been changed across the country because we did it first. But it took grassroots advocates bringing the policy to me, explaining it to me in a way that I could go and make sure that we acted on it in the city of Atlanta. And I think that's the same opportunity that you all have at the local, state, and federal level.
So I'll make a shameless plug. If you go to standwithcrypto.org, you'll see right on the landing page, you'll see a little email icon and a little phone call icon. If you click it and put your address in, it'll immediately link you to your member of Congress. There's a ChatGPT functionality that we built into it that will help you write a note, which could be quite effective. And so Within 30 seconds, your superpower as a constituent will be exercised in a really formidable way. So please go do that.
Long way from 1994.
So Marlene, you actually did an old school version of the superpower. You got in a plane, you flew to DC. We had 50 founders there. We walked the halls. We saw members of Congress up and down the aisle, left, right, House, Senate. How was that? Did that make a difference, you think?
Yeah, it was actually a great experience. I'd never done that before. A bit exhausting. My foot was hurting at the end of the day, but it was worthwhile. But in all seriousness, you know, one of the biggest takeaways for me is that our reps get it for the most part. You know, we had some amazing conversations with Rep. Loudermilk and others who understood the power of crypto. I think Loudermilk in particular had a lot of experience in the information technology industry, I think 20 or 30 years or so, and knew that blockchain technology enabled new solutions, created new opportunities that cannot be ignored by any government. If we look across the world, we see what's happening. We can look at China, we can look at just what happened with the UK and their regulatory bill, and others, including El Salvador, experimenting with Bitcoin as a sovereign currency. So there's no stopping crypto. And the majority of reps that I spoke to in Congress understood that. So that was very encouraging. I think what I got, so that was point number one. Number two, the takeaway number two was that we need to be more active, because the minute you leave that room, someone else is walking in, a different group, a completely different subject. So you just don't know if what you just said is, just gone out the window, right? Like literally within minutes. So the follow-up game is very, very, very important. So that's why we enjoy doing things like this, and we think forums like this is very important to keep the conversation forward. It's like traditional sales. I hate sales, but as a startup founder, I had to sell. It was either sell or die. Couldn't pay my bill, right, if I didn't make a sale. Couldn't hire staff. So, this process is similar to sales. You're not going to get the sale the first time around. You got to keep working, keep educating your potential target market, and then you'll get some wins.
No, and it was so amazing that you were there, and it made a huge difference. But leader abstraction, one of the things that people sometimes don't fully appreciate is how tightly linked federal politics and state politics is. And when you've got a couple of states who sort of are pathfinders in a particular issue, it sets a powerful example in DC, but it also sets a powerful example for the elected representatives that are in Congress or whatever in terms of the path they take. Could you kind of talk about that, about kind of what happens at the State House and the influence it has at the federal level and back and forth?
Certainly. Well, it's often said that the state legislatures are the test labs sometimes for the U.S. Congress. We see what works and doesn't work as it's tried in states. As I was mentioning earlier, we are seeing more what I would consider to be more national type issues that are considered in state legislatures across the country, which can have great benefits. It can allow for folks to try out different things, can allow for input from the industry and responsiveness in new innovative ways. There also can be real downsides, in my opinion, to that process. You can sometimes get states that really go out in a certain direction, and suddenly the industry is trying to respond to how a state's taken a different direction no one was really expecting. I know for me as a legislator, it's helpful often to see what that proposed regulation, what that proposed legislative structure looks like, and then to have a very knowledgeable advocate like you all in the room, to be able to explain the positives and negatives of certain policy decisions that are being brought forward, so that we can really work to advance the best possible legislation if we are considering this in the State House. And as was mentioned, certainly if states are getting it right, that can be a tremendous example for the U.S. Congress to say, okay, these states have done a good job with it. Now I think we're ready to move forward with a federal bill.
Fantastic. Robbie, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your experience when you came to DC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would certainly second the level of importance of just impact. And then also, I mean, one thing that it was very clear, because there's, a lot of different generations, right, in Congress and on the Hill. And so you have to speak to people's experience differently depending on that background, is, simplifying at least the positives of the technology in use cases that people can understand. And that's why oftentimes, when I refer to Umoja, right, I'm definitely going to point toward our humanitarian aid work. Because most people, especially in today's world, unfortunately, understand that's tethered to something that they can visualize in their mind. And then try to find domestic equivalents, right, that speak to that. So COVID stimulus, housing vouchers, rent assistance, EBT are all things that are a form of aid that are very impactful within each of those districts or regions that those individuals represent. But I do think that it was very powerful because, increasingly I'm quite bullish on the number of people who are going to be employed by companies that leverage blockchain technology in one way or another. They might not see themselves as a Web3 company, but they may be a bank like a JP Morgan or Standard Chartered, whichever, that is leveraging that piece of technology is a critical piece of infrastructure to how they work. And so the way that states see the economic impact of the technology should be not only an optimization of existing programs, but also what percentage of companies that already provide most of the jobs are going to start using that technology. And then lastly, I would say, and this is something that I don't think we emphasized enough, in that maybe we can do it again, is how it can, enable economic equity. A perfect example is, so I purchased my first home here in Atlanta, right near Centennial Park, using crypto, and it was a mess. I mean, it was like I was laundering money. It was very, very difficult, and I almost had to have one of my friends send me money because they would not accept my money. That was not going to happen, even though it was in dollars. The reason I bring this up is because as we see a lot of individuals moving to Atlanta, especially over COVID, we see rental prices going up, just living prices in general going up. There are ways that you can enable people to have fractional ownership of real estate using blockchain technology, enabling investments for those who might not be able to afford mortgages in the traditional way, and that is a form of equity, especially during a time where a lot of people may feel displaced because of increased residential taxes in particular. So just a few thoughts.
I always like to say, kind of to the point you made earlier, if you're a progressive and you're worried about inclusion and the democratization of finance, you should be for crypto. And if you're a conservative and you're focused on freedom, individual autonomy, liberty, you should be interested in the individual power that crypto gives you and that autonomy that allows the technology allows. But Representative Hong, before we turn to the audience, let me ask kind of a you version of the question I asked earlier in terms of like what's most effective with you when people come to you, because you were very kind at the outset to say that you were excited that the people were here and this was an opportunity for you to learn. But what makes a difference when you talk to members of the community about a new area?
Yeah, it's about face-to-face for me. We do get a lot of emails. As a state representative, we have emails from people all over the state, and so we get thousands of emails that we have to sift through. So you can call our office and make an appointment with us and come and sit down, and I'd be happy to do that. And I've done that with a lot of people with different issues. As Mayor Bottoms had mentioned, a lot of our legislation really, they do come from grassroots people that come to us and say, we have this issue that we may not, as legislators, know about. And so for us to know what you guys are concerned with is important for us. So, and the Capitol is open. It's a public building. And a lot of people have not been there. How many people have been to the Capitol? Oh, a lot of you guys. Good. I'd be surprised how many people haven't visited. But come down during session. Come, off session. A lot of the legislators are still there working. So it's about being involved, coming to committee meetings. If we know that you are an expert at a certain topic, when certain things like that come up, we'll call you and say, hey, can you come and speak to us a little bit more about this so we can be educated? Can you come and speak at this committee meeting? We have this bill involving this. What do you think about it? And can you give your input? So those are the things that really help during our committee meetings for us to know how to vote, why it's good, why it's bad. So I encourage all of you guys to do that. I think the difficult part of all the stuff that we just talked about, I think the difficult part is that a lot of people don't know the space. I certainly don't, and it's scary. When you don't know something, it's scary. And so the more you guys are out there discussing it and talking about how it works, I think it's gonna make it better for us to be more comfortable, better for public to be more comfortable in utilizing it. And that's kind of what we came to when Marlon and I were talking about it. I was like, why hasn't this become so popular? I've heard about it for so long. Why aren't people utilizing it? And I think it's because people are scared because they don't know. And so, like I said, you guys are the advocates. You guys are here for a reason late on a Wednesday night. So come and be the people that educate us so that we can know more and we can do what we can to help you guys.
All right, this has been fantastic. I think I have time for one.
There's a few questions that folks registered with that might be best to go through first.
Okay. All right, so we got a number of questions that people have sent in advance, so let me just read one of them here. And just given the limited amount of time, I'll sort of open it up. But the question was, do you see Atlanta becoming a Web3 hub? So
Absolutely.
All right.
Within the next, now 3 years,
All right.
we're going to be a top blockchain innovation hub.
Let's get a couple of other quick answers.
I mean, we have top engineering schools in the world are in Atlanta, right? Georgia Tech's right down the road. There is no reason why Atlanta shouldn't be a leading space in the industry, for sure.
It doesn't have to be in Silicon Valley. It doesn't have to be in New York. It can be here.
Not at all. It's. I mean, opportunity has been democratized, particularly in this industry. You don't need to be in New York or California to make an impact. And we already see that. One of the largest practical companies in the space storage. I mean, their founders from Atlanta. Right? They actually used to be based
out of this building.
Yeah, out of this building.
This building.
Yeah, exactly. So and they've been in the game for a while, right? Still running strong. So we can make sustainable companies here based off of the knowledge here.
And we, as a city, are constantly recruiting and saying, come to Atlanta. I made the trip as mayor, going to the West Coast saying, pick us. We're here, we're ready. And also not to mention the Atlanta University Center with some of our greatest HBCUs right here as well.
No, it's fantastic. I'll put a plug in for Coinbase too. We're like a lot of crypto companies. We're fully remote. And so we have people everywhere. And so we have them in Atlanta. We have them all around the country. It's not a coastal company. It's a all across the U.S. company. And the fight for talent. And part of the reason we did that is because the talent is everywhere. It's crazy to kind of limit yourself to a very narrow geographic reach of where your physical office happens to be. And so when places like Atlanta step up and they want to be a leader, companies like us respond by coming in and hiring the best talent. So we're excited about that. So we're at time. I think a number of you are going to be able to stick around for a few minutes and talk to the community founders who are here with us. But I wanted to thank everybody. I wanted to thank everybody who's watching on the live stream for being a part of this and for having sent in questions, and reminding everybody to go on to standwithcrypto.org, click the email link, click the phone link, get involved, sign up, and thank you for being a part of this wonderful evening.